My name is Professor Robin Miller.
And I'm Kelly Hall, and we're academic researchers from the University of Birmingham based in the School of Social Policy. We research community-led organisations, particularly in the health and social care sector.
Today we're going to talk to you about the research landscape and opportunities for community-led organisations. And the first place to start in our discussion is, what do we mean by research? And this is a term that's used widely and often differently by stakeholders in the health and social care system. One of the first differentials people make is between research and evaluation. And in formal academic circles, often research is seen as the deeper exploration of a theoretical topic, and evaluation is seen as a lighter research process in which we try and understand the impacts and process of a programme of change or improvement. From our perspectives, evaluation research are very interchangeable, and many of the methods that we use for research we also use in evaluation. And we can actually provide some very interesting and important insights into theory and wider evidence if we undertake a robust evaluation programme. So from our perspective, research and evaluation are very much the same activity. The second issue with research is, what are we going to look at? Are we looking at the impact of a programme? So what difference has it made to the stakeholders, to the public purse, to the communities that are supporting? Or are we looking at the implementation of a process? Are we trying to understand what has the change involved, which activities have contributed to those impacts, and how can we do those better in the future? Another important aspect is the participatory element. To what degree are people with lived experience, communities, practitioners involved in the research, or was it a purely academic research-focused exercise? And the final aspect of research, which is important for community-led organisations, is effectiveness. Have you delivered the outcomes and the services that you want to do in a way that uses the resources most efficiently and effectively? And there's no one definition of research which is used widely across the health and social care system, but this is one that we propose for the National Institute of Healthcare Research, which we'll talk about more later. And that's that research is about finding out new knowledge that could lead to changes to treatments, policies, or care. So it's very much seeing research as a tool that we can use to practically improve outcomes and services for people and communities.
So what are the potential benefits of research for community-led organisations? First, it's about using evidence and using research to be evidence-informed when you're making decisions internally for your organisation, about the next steps, about what to do and how to progress your organisation. It's about highlighting the needs of people and communities to commissioners, to public bodies. It's highlighting what is needed, what evidence is needed, what needs to be done in the space you're working. It's about generating evidence of impact and the value of the activities in your organisation. So, what is the social impact of the activities that you're delivering? Research is also about sharing and co-designing to share the power. So, it's about sharing power with the people you support, with the communities that you support. Research with academic institutions is about sharing power between academic researchers and voluntary organisations as well. It's about raising the wider profile and credibility of your organisation and community-led organisations as a whole. And finally, it's about generating research income. Now, the National Institute for Health and Care Research, which Robin's going to mention shortly, for example, they have £250 million of research money every year that you'd be able to access alongside academic researchers. And moving to some of the barriers. So what are some of the barriers to research for community-led organisations? This is based on research that has been done over the last couple of years by ourselves and colleagues. The first barrier is time and capacity. We're very aware that community-led organisations have limited time, have limited capacity, and actually you're delivering the service. You're out there delivering the service, and it's that doing rather than thinking culture. Research is often seen as an add-on rather than something that's embedded in the everyday practice of the organisation. So it's about thinking about research, but embedding it in everything that you do and making it work for you as an organisation. Second, the lack of dedicated funding for community-led organisations, and where to start with research is difficult. If you're delivering services, how do you embed research there? Where do you get the funding from? Who do you approach? And the last one is about working with academic researchers. We're very aware that it can be difficult to work with academic researchers for a number of reasons. For example, academic processes can be very different to community-led organisations. Things like ethics, committees, again, very, very different. We're aware that community-led organisations often get last-minute requests from academics to be involved in projects, rather than being asked from the start what the question should be, what should this research be about. So it's about thinking about research in a different way, but being involved and being proactive in research from the outset. And that all can lead to a lack of genuine partnerships with researchers. Many others, these are just some of the main barriers that we've identified.
But despite these many barriers, we do think that the research landscape is one that has many opportunities for community-led organisations. And across the UK, the governments have invested huge amounts of money in research because they see that as something that is very much a positive of the UK infrastructure, and also because it can generate genuine benefits in terms of patient and community outcomes and an effectiveness in health and social care services. And one major funder that we often apply to is the National Institute of Health and Care Research. As Kelly says, it has £250 million in this year, which is dedicating to taking forward research. And over the last 10 years or so, the NIHR has moved its focus from looking primarily at healthcare research to health and social care research, and thinking about social care in its broadest terms in relation to, yes, delivery of personal care in people's own homes and residential care settings, but also thinking about the broader social determinants of health. What are those issues in society, housing, leisure, employment, that contribute to people's health and well-being? They've also had a greater focus on diversity and inclusion in their research, recognising that some communities in our society are better researched, and therefore evidence reflects their needs and aspirations, and other communities have been disadvantaged in terms of being excluded from research. So they've got a real focus on involvement and inclusion of marginalised communities in their research programmes. And the third major development within the NIHR and other funding bodies is recognising that when we design a research programme, when we start off with identifying the opportunity, defining the questions, the people who might benefit from that research should be central to the whole process. So the idea of involving people with lived experience, or PPIs it's often called in healthcare, is absolutely core to the NIHR's expectations of how researchers do the business and how they find and share their implications from the research as well. All of which highlights that the community-led organisations has a huge potential role to play in the design, the delivery and the dissemination of research findings funded by the National Institute of Healthcare Research. And there's two main types of opportunities that can be funded through bodies like the NIHR. The first is research projects themselves. So it's identifying a challenge, an innovation, an opportunity, and designing a research programme to understand what would work in what circumstances and for who. And so to then generate research findings that can be embedded in practice and policy. And the other type of grant that people at the NIHR fund is capacity building grants. They recognise that there's a very limited pool of particularly social care researchers and public health care researchers who can then apply for the grants, undertake the research projects. And so they've got a number of different funding streams that will try and build the skills and the capacity of health and social care researchers. And increasingly, and this is important for community-led organisations, they're opening up those capacity building grants to not only within universities and research bodies, but also within provider and community-led organisations. So there's opportunities there for people to do PhDs, to work toward doing a PhD, just to develop their research expertise and capacity and undertake skills-based training, etc. So there's two types of main opportunities, both of which will be open to community-led organisations. And certainly to begin with, the reality is that accessing these financial opportunities and the support they can provide will require collaborating with universities. So what do universities bring? Well, universities, first of all, have an understanding of these funding schemes. There's an incredible range of funding available from people at NIHR to Dunhill Medical Trust to other grant-making bodies. And universities tend to have good insights into where these bodies are, what the criteria are, and when the different calls will come out. The second thing that universities have is they have an infrastructure to support people in making the grant applications. And these are complicated. There's a lot of detail required in terms of the costings, in terms of the project management, in terms of the teams that will be involved with it. And universities will have an infrastructure that could support the universities and their partners get together that information and translate it into the form or the portal that's required. The third thing is that what we do as researchers is we do spend a lot of time applying for money. So we understand how to frame a question, how to articulate our aspirations, and how to bring together a team in a way that seems credible to the funding body. We also have a large number of networks, so both between other universities and researchers, but also within policy and practice partners. And that's important because what research funders want to see is that there's an interest from the sector in the particular research questions and that they're going to contribute and collaborate to design the delivery. And the final thing that we have is we have internship opportunities. So we can offer internships where people from third sector organisations come in and spend time with the universities, or where people from the universities go and spend time within community-led organisations. So universities have a great contribution to make to applying and securing research grants, but so do community-led organisations. And as I said in my earlier slide, there's increasing expectation from funders like NIHR that communities will be actively involved throughout the whole research process. So what do you have? Well, the first thing is you understand the delivery of services to people and communities. You know what it's like on the ground, you know what matters to them, what challenges they face, and to potential ways of addressing those challenges. You have these strong connections to communities. Universities often struggle to understand, how do we go and speak to people who have a long-term condition? How do we go and meaningfully communicate with people from different minority ethnic groups, for example? Well, you as community-led organisations will have those networks. You're credible partners with those communities, and often, in fact, you've been developed by those communities, so you can bring that to the research skills and insights. You have an enormous amount of valuable research data, both in terms of giving access to people who benefit from services, from your practitioners, from the records that you have, some of the care planning tools that you will use in practice. All those are really important research data opportunities that universities can then analyse and use in their research projects. And finally, when we get to the end of a research project, increasingly, and quite rightly, research funders don't just want us to generate knowledge, they want us to show how that's going to make a difference in practice, the impact aspects of research. And again, you can bring in insights into how to best translate that, to explain it to people, to support people, and then to work with your networks to implement it in practice. So you're an incredibly important partner of the research process, and that's something that you need to be confident with in terms of collaborations with university to make sure there's not only value for universities, but economic and reputational value for you as community-led organisations.
So there's a number of different participatory research activities at the University of Birmingham, a number of projects that Robin and I are going to give you just a couple of examples of. So these are about enabling and supporting research collaborations between community-led organisations and universities. An example of a project that I'm leading at the moment is called Research Better Together. This is a project between ourselves at the University of Birmingham in the School of Social Policy and Birmingham Voluntary Services Council, or BVSC. The idea of the project is to develop stronger partnerships and collaborations between academic researchers and community-led organisations. The project's been running for a couple of years now. It began with a couple of small pieces of research to really understand some of the barriers and challenges and benefits of academics and community-led organisations working together. We then use the evidence from that research to understand what is needed in practice. So we've, over the last 18 months, delivered participatory research training, participatory activities that include creative methodology training. We've delivered various webinars. We've delivered a number of networking events, the idea being to bring together community-led organisations and academic research to talk about the topics that are really important to them and to co-create and co-design their own research ideas that involve participatory approaches with the communities that community-led organisations support. We've also offered 5 collaborative partnerships, mentoring and a small grant to take forward their ideas. And those partnerships are underway at the moment. and involve academic researchers and community-led organisations across a really diverse range of different areas. We have another 6 months of the project to go, but it's really exciting at the moment just to see these collaborations forming from a very bottom-up approach.
And the second project that we're doing with the Birmingham Voluntary Services Council, University of Birmingham, is a project that's been led by the Medical and Dental School at the university in collaboration with BVSC and the Community Health Trust within Birmingham. And that's to secure a grant from the NIHR to work with the Integrated Care Board about developing a community research infrastructure that will help to address and understand health inequalities in the city. And again, this is a good example of where the university has got to know Birmingham Voluntary Services Council. We understand what's important to them, they understand what's important to us, and through that we've developed a very open and trusting collaboration in which sometimes we lead as a university and sometimes they lead as a Voluntary Services Council. A third project that's very worth sharing about is something called the Impact Centre, which is Improving Adult Social Care Together Centre, which is hosted by the University of Birmingham, but works in collaboration with other universities and practice partners across the whole of the UK. And this one is funded by the by the ESRC, and this project is also funded by the Health Foundation. And it's about how do we use evidence to better inform social care practice and policy. And within the Impact Centre, we have a range of projects, facilitators, demonstrators and networks, which try to work with the local site to think about a particular issue for them in terms of social care practice, and to show how evidence from research, from lived experience and practice knowledge can enable that site to take forward that opportunity to improve adult social care practice and policy and draw out lessons for the wider UK. And one of the projects I've been leading in that is one in Mid and East Antrim with an organisation called Mid and East Antrim Age Well Partnership. They had a very well regarded community navigation scheme which connected up pharmacy, general practice and social work teams with community and voluntary organisations, and also worked with the community and voluntary organisations to develop their assets and resources. And we've worked with them over the last year to think about how they can further improve that service. So we've thought about things like diversity. How do they make sure that the community navigation is open out to minority ethnic groups? How do they better invest in the community-led organisations? And how do they make sure their model is financially sustainable going forward, including the use of social impact bonds? And now we're at the point of writing up the insights and sharing it within different policy and practice partners in Northern Ireland, but also across the whole of the UK. And each year, the Impact Centre has a call for partners to come forward to say they'd like to work with us, and then we'll invest one or two of our workers to support that organisation over the next 12 months in order to take forward that particular area of policy and practice.
And the final example is the Community Practitioner Research Programme, which is a collaboration between School of Social Policy and colleagues at Birmingham and community-led organisations in Birmingham. And the idea of that programme is to embed research skills and research training within community-led organisations and within communities so that researchers are those who are based in communities. They're people who live in the communities, people who understand those communities.
Okay, so thank you very much for your time today. And I think from us there's three takeaway messages. The first is that community-led organisations have a huge contribution to make towards research. The second one is that the research landscape means there's more funding opportunities than ever available to community-led organisations. And the third one is that universities are actively looking for you as partners to work with in terms of their research proposals. And we look forward to thinking about those more in terms of the Capability Development Programme and talking through how you can make the most of those opportunities. Thank you.